Morning, everyone. It's the 24th of June. We are Signal Centre Talking Ball. I'm Joe Neighbour, joined by Steve O'Hare. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, mate. All right.
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Watched the football yesterday?
It
Madness,
did.
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was like fantastic, wasn't it? It
I
was
had to
like
get two screens to go. I had to have my phone and the TV. It's like, what's going on here? We
I
were playing
know.
all four teams at one point during the evening, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah. End up with Germany.
I'm not
So
upset about that. I don't think they
no,
look great, if I'm honest.
I don't think anyone is. I think Hungary might have been a bit of a difficult team to break down because
Yeah, they were
they're
up for
very
it, weren't they?
typically they're very much like these sides in the Premier League that just defend, like Arsenal and things. And you just like really like park a bus and you can't break them down.
Yeah.
And it just spoils the game. So yeah, it should be quite exciting. Germany will be attacking, so it should be quite a good game.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so just over to the news. There are concerns over a potential third wave of infections in the UK. There was over 16,000 new cases yesterday of the Delta variant, which is now the dominant variant. So that is a concern, but the low death rate is suggesting that the vaccines are breaking the link between those two statistics. So, some good indications that the vaccines are taking hold. And therefore the lockdown measures could still be eased regardless of the number of new infections. So we're all optimistic that that will be the case, and that hopefully will be the case for all these other countries as well that are facing similar issues. So fingers crossed. We've got the Bank of England today. They've got a big task on their hands. They need to balance the need for the economy to recover, but also limit inflation and also speculation about interest rate rises. The build up to the MPC announcement, which is due at 12 o'clock today, has been dominated by a jump in the consumer price growth above the BOE's inflation 2% target for the first time in almost 2 years. So need to obviously keep that in check, and that will be discussed at the press conference today. From a stocks perspective, it looks like we are opened higher today, so certainly on the front foot. We have got a few bits and pieces to keep an eye out for today, which we'll come on to a bit later. But for now, I guess we can get stuck into the charts. Anything that's taken your interest this morning, Steve?
I'll start with indices first. There's a couple of things that took my interest on Twitter, but we can sort of like drill down into them later. It's a lot of it was about how data is presented, and also the COVID-19 sound bites that you get sent out. Really interesting in showing the chart format, and how one chart can sort of like really make it look bad, and another chart gives you more information. Anyway, we'll dive into indices. FTSE, we've got this bearish outside candle on the weekly chart. We've had a recovery from the start of the week, and prices have pushed higher, but seem to have stalled ever so slightly yesterday. So we're still seeing bearish candles on the weekly, and we've got this wedge formation that we've highlighted, and price is still below it. We've retested the resistance at 71.22 yesterday. I think that stopped me out on my gun to head challenge, which is a shame. And then this morning we seem to have sort of like picked up a little bit, and a little bit positive at the moment, but I'm not sure whether that'll stay. DAX, similar sort of formations, breaking out of these wedge formations to the downside, but no real follow through at the moment. I was looking at the hourly chart just this morning. Overnight we saw a little bit of a pickup, and this morning we saw it push higher and get up to made a high in the DAX of 15,568, and then reversed really sharply. You can probably see it on a shorter term frame here, just like collapse after the 8 o'clock open. So the 8 o'clock open, we see a big influx of trades, and a lot of them obviously were trades to try and sell DAX. So we've managed to get down to 15,480, and we've picked back just as we're chatting now, coming up to the 9 o'clock candle close. Dow Jones again had a little bit of two-way action overnight, and we are again, if we look at the longer term charts, they're looking pretty negative. So it's really sort of a bit of a pivotal day today with Thursday, and we're looking at these, and I'm sort of thinking it feels a little bit toppy, feels a little bit exhausted already. But there's always that element of you don't get carried away with it, and we'll probably see the US come in and help support this in some way, shape or form. NASDAQ kicking on to new highs. There's no stopping this bad boy. We're in the fifth and final wave of an impulsive move higher. Actually, we've got to redraw this because that isn't a Elliott wave at all, because the fourth wave took out the top high of the first wave. So we have to cancel that and start all over again. So we potentially are in even, which some people will like to hear the sound of this. This is wave one, correction wave two, wave three. We're in the middle of wave three. So that's interesting. Because we can't have this crossover back. The low crosses back over wave, the high of wave one. That negates it as the wave. So we're still in wave three, maybe not finished yet, waiting for a turnaround, but at the all-time highs. Pretty interesting. More to come from the NASDAQ potentially. S&Ps, a little bit of a similar story to Dow. Really, we broke below this upward trending support line, but we've pushed back above it again, looking to push towards new highs. So as Joe was saying earlier, it looks like we're a bit of a firmer footing as we go into this Thursday. Let's see what the US bring this afternoon. Aussie 200 on the weekly chart, we've got the shooting star candle. Let's look at the daily chart. Little bit of a correction from here, so a little bit of an ABC correction. And really not a lot going on this morning. China 50, which is the one that for me is going to lead the way lower, that's having a little bit of an overnight recovery, and I know Hang Seng was a little bit similar to that, just holding on in this sort of like channel formation, sideways channel formation, potentially a right shoulder, but it's pretty extended now, so it looks a bit messy. The Nikkei also had a little bit of a spike up overnight. We're short of it on the intraday trade idea, but again, it's all a bit mid-range. So look for something else to trade, I think. So what else could we look to trade? We could look to trade oil, because that continues to go higher. We got up to our resistance area that we've been talking about for a while. Yesterday between 72.85, 73.65. This is the WTI crude oil, and we managed to poke our head above the resistance and then got smacked back down again. But we fought back again this morning, so on the front foot again on the but in this channel of resistance channel here. Gold is not really doing a lot on a daily chart. We've had the big sell-off, and we've had a bit of consolidation here, potentially forming a bearish flag. Sitting above support at 1755, that's important. Really, prices need to hold on to there, otherwise we're retesting the 1680 level. Let's have a look at, what can we look at now? Should we have a look at cryptos? Why not? Bitcoin, you bad boy, what you doing? I'm still short of Bitcoin. Been short for
lower this morning.
Yeah, well, good. I'm short around about the 40,000 level. Really looking to target around about the 22,000 level. That's where my profit take is, but it could go lower than that. I'm still thinking that we're in we're basically within this fourth wave correction, which can be quite a long correction, and then we need to break down below this 28,788, and then really target potentially a move down to 12,000. But initially I'll be looking at, there's a gap in the chart on one of the charts I looked at around about 25,000, but the 18.5 to 20,000 level of support for me is quite key. That was the previous all-time high that we talked about for a few years, so I think a revisit to there is on the cards. I can't see really anything changing it. I did look at MicroStrategy, bought nearly 500 million worth of Bitcoin this week. Quite interesting looking at some of these companies, and MicroStrategy are a sort of like some sort of AI services company, and they now hold, I think it was somewhere in the region of 100,000 Bitcoin. I don't know. I have to sort of like look at the detail. 100,000 Bitcoin. The average price they're long at, because they just bought it the other day at 36,000, is 26,000. That's their average long price. But that's a lot of Bitcoin to hold, I think. I mean, if we do get these moves lower, then we could potentially sort of have a real disaster on our hands for some of these guys. Because
we've had conversations we've heard people taking these loans from the banks that were offered as a result of the pandemic and sticking it all in Bitcoin, and it's all at much higher prices. So
yeah, and I suppose you sort of, if you're taking a loan which over 7 years or something, interest free or whatever it is, low interest, then you don't have to. You sort of just have to pay back the repayments. But what happens when you can't pay back the repayments for whatever reason, because Bitcoin has taken over the world and it's realized the value is only $1? Because it is, isn't it? It's sort of like these companies are buying it, and they're buying it with a view that the value of Bitcoin will go up.
yeah.
I'm just saying there's a good chance, or there's a potential for it not to go up. I'm not saying it won't be a thing of the future, because as we said before, cryptocurrencies will be a thing of the future. But I'm just sort of like scratching my head as to why we should be valuing it at such heady levels. Doesn't make sense to me at all. And you know, as we said yesterday, Joe, we talked about it, the value of the Bitcoin. You know, for us to sort of use in the high street, you sort of like I don't know, it just seems like a long way off. So at the moment,
Yeah, and I think there may be alternative iterations led by governments, maybe GovCoins.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it won't be decentralized then.
No.
So yeah, so I mean, when we talk about Bitcoin and we're talking about Bitcoin against the dollar, we're centralized, aren't we? We're sort of like, we're linked to the dollar.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Bitcoin on its own. And even against Tether, that's another story. That's another sort of like quagmire that I don't really want to go into.
No, let's quickly get off this story, shall we? Let's get on to FX for today. So you were done, weren't you, Steve?
Yeah, sorry, I was done. I was getting a call coming through as well.
Okay, it's a popular guy. That's someone telling you off about your view on Bitcoin, is it? Okay, so let's get on with the FX then. So dollar index is where we obviously start this every morning. So we've seen a breakout from this downtrend channel, which has been in place since the March highs that we posted on dollar index, and since then obviously we've been on a slow grind lower. But interestingly, a break here, and we now expect this level at 91.43 to act as a support level, and potentially that's what we're seeing today. So we've seen a push up, an impulsive move higher, we've seen a pullback, and we've seen the buyers step in just in front of that level to support it. So are we going to see some continued building of support around here before another attempt at a move higher towards our next resistance level, which comes in at 93.02? So that's what we're looking for today. How does this transfer over to euro dollar, which obviously is the flip side of often what we see on the dollar index chart? Well, we saw the breakdown here, impulsively smashed through these support levels at 1.1985, and in the last couple of sessions we've seen an attempt at a retest of this level, seen the sellers step in just in front of it again. As we saw with the dollar index, they stepped in just in front of the support, and we posted this sort of shooting star type ish candle yesterday. So quite interesting for me. What I've got drawn on here, as I keep referring to, is this potential head and shoulders top on the euro dollar chart. This is the daily chart. So I think if this does complete, it would be quite a big signal to the market that dollar index is going to continue moving higher, and certainly euro is going to continue moving lower. So the official break of the head and shoulders top pattern needs to be confirmed on a move through this blue line here, which is the neckline, which is drawn from the lows here of the left shoulder across the head and the right shoulder. From a preference point of view, I always like to see a break of a horizontal level. So I'd be looking for this level to be taken out here at 1.1704 to really confirm that. But I think, you could be looking to speculate on retests of this level for at least a move down to the neckline in the short term. So from a risk reward perspective, I think there's more downside there compared to the upside if you were to place your stops above these resistance levels, and then ultimately targeting a move down to the measured move of this potential head and shoulders top pattern, which comes down here at 1.1056. So potentially, a large move on the cards here with euro dollar in the coming weeks and months, which obviously we will continue to monitor. Looking at some of the other dollar linked assets, we've got Aussie. This for me actually completed a head and shoulders top pattern on the move through this support level here at 75.50. We've seen it come back quite convincingly and actually bust back through the neckline of the head and shoulders top. You could argue that you've got this downtrending sloping neckline, and therefore it although it did just close below it, it wasn't really a convincing one. But again, that kind of invalidates my sort of theory that I want to see the break of these horizontal support levels. So I think we're in for a bit of mixed price action, but ultimately I'd be looking to fade this because I do think we are going to see lower prices. I had this drawn on yesterday as a potential idea to take a look at, a really tight stop, assuming that neckline would hold as resistance, but it hasn't. So obviously need to rethink. Maybe looking for levels a little bit higher up to potentially target in order to get short. But ultimately, the measured move of this head and shoulders pattern, taking the measurement from the head to the neckline projecting lower, comes down at 70.57. So again, huge potential reward there if you can catch it right and your timing's good, and you've got the patience to stick with it over maybe the short to medium term. If we take a look at New Zealand dollar versus the US dollar, it's a similar scenario. We do have what I believe is a top pattern formed. It's not a classical one by any means, but we did almost take out this support level. We closed below it, but then we came roaring back. So maybe looking for an alternative level to potentially get short. I've highlighted this red line up here as maybe an area to try and fade it into. Again, looking for lower prices there. I've projected the move lower by taking this high down to this low, projecting it lower, and that comes down at 64.27. So that would be my medium-term target on the downside. But just looking for better levels really to, or more indication that things are going to start selling off again. Dollar CAD, this was quite interesting. It broke a big channel, big wedge that's been in place since March, as you can see. Actually, this goes back further than that. This goes, oh no, it is March, sorry. And obviously price action had been contained within this for a number of months. We did see some sort of minor bottoming formation, really sort of shallow bottom formed. We had a big push up. We had an impulsive breakout of the level, but now we've seen a pullback and we're back within that channel. So are we going to see another attempt at a move higher? Maybe it could correct all the way down here to retest this sort of support zone down here before a continuation higher. Again, this is all going to be dependent on what the dollar index does. What else we've got? Euro yen I thought looked quite interesting in the sense that we've seen a break of trend. We have seen again a pullback and maybe a retest. I always like to target these candles prior to the impulsive move down as a potential zone for supports and resistance levels. So I've drawn on this level here at 132.68, and as you can see yesterday we pretty much nailed that level and then sold off. So is this the area to begin fading this with maybe a stop loss above these highs? If you want to be super conservative, if you want it to be more aggressive, then I think you can maybe put it above this candle here, somewhere up here, and target a deeper correction on euro yen. But what this is telling me is that yen is maybe coming back into favor after having a really torrid time. Let me just see if I can get the baskets up quickly. Currency indices, and if we look at Japanese yen, I mean, on a basket front, it still looks like it's not doing very much. In fact, it may have even made a new low yesterday. Yeah, it did. So that kind of invalidates that theory, and maybe it's just we're seeing weakness in euro as opposed to strength in yen. That's still not really picking up any interest from a safe haven perspective. If we look at euro, obviously we can see that big impulsive move down, a gap actually on this chart. Maybe a bit of a pullback to fill that gap before a continuation lower. So yeah, it's becoming more interesting, that's for sure, in the currency side of things. And I think some potential medium to short to medium term targets are opening up and appearing. And from a risk reward perspective, there are some interesting plays potentially starting to emerge. So that's the roundup from me on the currency front today.
Thanks for that, Joe.
Okay, gun to the head trades from yesterday. Steve, you mentioned that you were stopped out on your idea yesterday on FTSE. Is that right?
Yeah, FTSE. I think it was stopped out. Yeah.
Seeing a 25 tick target on stop on that. I managed to stop the rot of 5 losing trades in a row yesterday with a smallish win on sterling New Zealand dollar of 0.82R. How's that looking today? When I checked this morning, it was going quite nicely. But
bit of relief there, Joe. I was about to sack you for another one, so that's lucky.
It's not my worst run. I think I had 10 in a row once.
No, it's impossible.
No, it happened. So that was a trade yesterday. Anyway, it was that was 8 o'clock, and it did slide off a little bit more. So could have been nice. Anyway, let's have a play again today. Is there anything that you fancy?
Not really. Everything feels a bit mid-rangey again. I think it's just the timing of this podcast is stitching us up a little bit. But we managed to have done all right so far. Gold, it just sits in the middle. I can't really see anything changing there until you get the break. Oil, I think it's pointless trying to fade that bad boy. And risk reward and buying it is pretty poor at the moment. So I suppose I go to indices. As I said, I'm short of DAX, and price action this morning has been a little bit two-way, and indices feel a little bit constructive at the moment. So I'm sort of scratching my head, really, mate.
Okay, well, let me have a go then. I'm going to take a look at Aussie yen. So I mentioned yen maybe attracting interest as a safe haven. It certainly didn't look like that on the currency index that I was looking at. But for me, this is quite interesting. So this is the Aussie yen weekly chart. So last week we posted a really nasty looking bearish candle, as you can see there. We have rallied back quite substantially this week, but we haven't managed to recover all of the losses that were made. So why this is interesting for me, one of my triggers when trading is looking for a close below the 10-period exponential moving average, which, you know, we've been above that exponential moving average on the weekly chart for ages. And this was the first close that we saw below it. In fact, let me just try and measure that just so we know. So that was the last time we were below it. And that's now, so 32 weeks we've managed to stay above that moving average. So the close suggests, you know, as we saw here, maybe we'll see a little period of correction lower. Certainly feel that it needs it. It's had a massive run higher. But let's just stop waffling and get to the nitty gritty. So as I mentioned earlier, I like to see retests of the candles prior to the impulsive move down. So this is the low of the candle here I'm looking at from the week commencing the 7th of June. I'm looking for a retest of that because I think that's kind of the optimal point where it's either going to engulf it back and, you know, take it back and start moving higher again, or that's where it's going to be last chance saloon for it to then start heading lower. So I'm going to try and fade that today and sell it. Let's have a look at the intraday chart. So I've got a fib levels drawn on here from this high that we posted on the 11th of June down to these lows on the 21st. Got a 61.8% fib level in and around this zone. Hasn't done a perfect job by any means as acting as resistance, but certainly price action appears to have stalled a little bit. And if we look at some horizontal levels, just taking that level into account there, and maybe this low here as well, then we have a little bit of a band of resistance that could potentially prevent price from moving higher. So there's a lot for it to try and do to overcome that. And if we look at the hourly chart, it's stalling a little bit. So I'm going to sell it here. It's quite a detailed explanation today for this guns ahead idea. It's 8400 on the nose at the minute, so a nice round number. We've got a nice little cluster of price action here to place the stop loss above, so we can keep that nice and tight. Only 20 ticks, 84.20, and why not? Let's go for a humdinger all the way down to the lows that we posted on the 21st of June. So only 3 days ago we were down here, so there's not anything ruling out or suggesting that it can't get back down there again pretty quickly. So targeting 9.2R on that one today.
I like it, Joe.
Target 82.14.
Nice one. Talking my sort of language now. Okay, well, we'll jump across to mine. I've settled on Bitcoin. Obviously, I know I'm not trying to sort of convince everyone to sell Bitcoin to help my position out, which I'm actually short of at 40,000 or 39,000. So don't think it's that, but it's just everything else looks a bit sort of in the middle, really. I don't really feel comfortable buying the DAX. So selling the DAX. It sort of like feels like it could have a little bit of a pop higher against me. But anyway, the hourly, this is 15-minute chart. I meant to sort of like look at hourly charts. What am I doing? Well, 15-minute chart looks negative. It's posted a hanging man candle here. This is like almost like an evening star type formation with a hanging man in the middle. So that's negative for me. So if we see what the trend has been doing over the last 15 minutes, we've got this this sort of trend line. We're back below it, so potentially we get a little bit of a sell off from here. Stop can be pretty tight, 33,250. Where's the stop level? So let's get a bit tighter than that. If it takes that high out, I think this will be wrong. And let's get ready to rumble. Where's that? Where's my price target? Oh, that's perfect. 10-to-1 risk reward. I've done you, Joe. Selling Bitcoin here. The stop is at 33,321.6. The target is 28,921, which is where the swing low is. So monstrous. That for me looks like another monster. Let's see if it can play out.
That'll play out in the next 15 minutes as well, won't it? On the next candle, maybe.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about 3 days worth of price action. That's just one little fart, Matt. That is, mate. Especially if sort of like some of these, if MicroStrategy start to look at our podcast, they might think, oh shit, what if the value of Bitcoin doesn't go up, and they try and offload sort of like 100,000 coins. So that the sort of like the spike from the dip last week, that is, people like MicroStrategy investing for the long term. They're sort of thinking, right, this is the thing to play, let's buy it, and then we have this big rally, stops the rot. Buying it at a technical level, good idea. It's working for them, but their average is 36,000, so it hasn't quite worked yet.
No, definitely not. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Steve. So in terms of the day ahead, we have the German IFO index, which was out at 9 o'clock this morning, so that's already been and gone. I haven't seen what the reading was. At 12 p.m. today, we've got the Bank of England rate decision. No change expected in rates, but given the recent CPI strength, some commentary on inflation and expected changes in monetary policy may cause movement in anything sterling related. So keep your eyes peeled around midday. Then we get to 1:30 UK time. We have a glut of data due out from the US, starting off with US durable goods. We then have the important GDP Q1 final reading, and then obviously our weekly jobless claims number that is due out as well. So anything dollar linked or US indices could be impacted around 1:30 today. So plenty to keep us interested. And just to finish up, we had a conversation a few weeks back, Steve, about NFTs, non-fungible transactions. And I've just seen in the news today that the inventor of the World Wide Web Sir Tim Berners-Lee is auctioning off his original source code for the web as an NFT today. So if that Bitcoin trade comes in the next half an hour, you might be in with a chance of sticking a bid in on that.
I'm not that loaded up in it, actually. It's only a small trade. So I think that'll go for a lot more than I'll make out of this.
Quite possibly. It'd be interesting to see, though.
Yeah, amazing. That's something definitely worth sort of like hanging on your wall.
Can you hang it on your wall? Hanging it on your USB
hanging on your USB stick. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but then you can plug your USB stick into a picture frame, and then it's there on the wall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. Okay. Have a great day, everybody. We're back tomorrow, and until then, trade safe.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.